Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Hustle, Style and Stories with Shanu Suresh, where we often uncover journeys of exciting individuals, industry titans across various industries such as business, science, technology, etc. Today, we are happy to have with us Betseba Madani Hermann, the Global Research Head at Philips. She's deeply passionate about science, she's deeply passionate about research, and she's responsible for identifying key industries that could contribute to the growth of the company and the future, especially in areas of healthcare and technology. If you enjoy having and watching a conversation around healthcare, around science, around technology, and anything that's relevant in that space today, then you will definitely enjoy this episode. Thank you, Betsebe, for being with us on the show on Hustle, Style and Stories. Firstly, I'd love to begin by asking you, where did this all start? What was the time that you realized that research is your domain?
I was a kid, maybe about 8, 9, 10. And I read about Edward Jenner's story. He's the guy who discovered the very first vaccine. And that led me to reading about Louis Pasteur, Marie Curie. And then the gold mine was Richard Feynman, a big educator in physics. And I think that's where I knew I'm a geek. That and also I really, really wanted an Atari when I was about 9 years old. So those are the two paths. Growing up, I wanted to either win a Nobel Prize or become an astronaut.
I love that goal.
Both of them were a little bit far-fetched, but it's good to shoot for the stars. Yes. Literally, I guess.
So tell us about Philips. How did Philips happen to you? And where were you before that? Let's gradually, progress to Philips. But where were you before Philips?
Sure. So I'm a scientist and engineer by training. And a few years after grad school in sciences, I went back to school and did an MBA at Dartmouth's Tech School of Business. And that's where it launched me into being more of a technical person who also speaks finance. And I'm an extrovert, so the combination became this very unique package. I was at my very first large company afterwards. Before that, I'd already been at startups in healthcare IT. I worked with Neil Patterson, the founding CEO of Cerner, which is a healthcare IT company, had done a lot of great things and made a name for itself in hospitals and health IT ecosystems. And that's where I learned about the challenges of healthcare. I went from that into an oncology care coordination space and really software as a service. And it was becoming more software than healthcare. But over time, the journey took me to this larger, impactful, at scale company. So having been at startups and having been at venture capital firms, I learned a lot around how do you do innovation fast. And I had an opportunity to join Philips in 2022 as the head of strategy and business development for a group of 6 businesses.
Wow.
First, which was called Connected Care. And they're doing fantastic things around patient monitoring, ambulatory monitoring, the work in sleep and respiratory. There's a lot of things that are in enterprise informatics. And these are places where you're taking away the challenges of the healthcare system. And that was fascinating. So that being as part of strategy and business development team exposed me to this world of scale where you are with various different customers globally, having been in startups before it. And when we had a restructuring and a change in the company, I was asked if I would be the next head of research. And I think that was a really cool challenge to embark on.
Yeah.
So I've been the head of research for about 2 years.
But it would have been an easier decision for you because you have been from the science background, research background, and this was just...
And I've been an academic researcher.
Yes.
I've been a vet laboratory scientist at some point in my career.
So it really was your domain.
Indeed. And
okay.
I think the way we are looking at research benefits, and I also benefit from having had the previous background,
Right.
because we treat it more like 2 buckets of things. One of them is like an internal venture studio where we are looking at exploratory innovations, go fast and sculpt things quickly, see if it works, fail fast. And the other one is more like later stage concepts that have evolved. And that's more for things that are more like a Series B or a Series C startup, where they have legs and you're going to be doing something that is disruptive. to the
Right.
ecosystem completely. And that's where we were like diving into robotic surgery or data and AI and clinical insights. And that's where we're working closely with our partners and customers, but also internally, our teams are ring fenced. The way, perhaps this might be interesting to note, the way that large companies try to innovate, there's always this constant struggle between what you're innovating today for today's sake and what you're innovating incrementally for maybe tomorrow. And when you're looking at 10 years from now, where the ecosystem is going to be, I think that's where the challenge comes in, because you have customers that are asking for things for today, whereas you also want to disrupt the future before being disrupted yourself, and
So
also
you
make
have
a huge
to be
dent.
relevant today, yet plan way ahead.
Exactly. And so that planning ahead is what there's been some really wise individuals that have tried to do this at Philips, and they put together a ring-fenced package around Philips research, where as much as we are looking at the strategy of the company, we're also a bit protected from all the pressures of a large corporation. So that today is something we are aware of, but a change with a specific piece in the corner today doesn't necessarily derail us from the plans for tomorrow. And we're looking at building those bigger, impactful things that disrupt the ecosystem for tomorrow.
Wow, that's so, I have so many questions.
That was a very long-winded answer.
Yes, but I have so many questions. Okay. You used robotic surgery. Let me get to know a bit more about that. So, of course, AI is everywhere. We are here at the Web Summit in Qatar. And tell me the role of AI that you see in the foreseeable future in healthcare, and also robotic surgery. Is that going to be a reality? How safe is it? What would be the challenges
You already
associated?
have robotic assisted surgery in places,
But not, they wouldn't be 100%.
So this is still procedure automation. So you
Right.
try to do procedure automation. Both of them actually have something in common. When you're looking at AI and robotics, when it comes to healthcare, they do two very important things. They increase the precision of care, and they also provide more access.
Mhm.
Because imagine if, for example, you're getting an image. It could be a radiology.
Right.
If it has a distortion,
Mm-hmm.
the patient has to go back in and do it again.
So,
But what if you could use
AI
AI to get rid of some of those distortions and make the image reconstructed
So it
better?
will sort of refill in or fill in the
If
gaps.
if you can do that, then the machine is available for another patient. The physician and the radiologist are
Time.
available. Their time is back to them. And the individual who was coming, they don't have to come. Imagine if you're trying to reach the same high quality of care to a rural area from an urban area. And this is, you can see it all across healthcare. Healthcare is all about building more efficient systems, giving time back to the physician so they can actually focus on the patient, giving time back to the patients as well, and making healthcare as a whole a lot more efficient and sustainable.
No, in the larger scheme of things, it definitely does sound nice. But, of course, AI has been around for a really long time, from the 1940s, 50s, in fact, but in the very rudimentary stage, which was not clearly accepted. And today, of course, since you are coming from the research background, you can back me on this. We obviously had the data 2000 onwards when internet and all of that came in. And how much data do we readily have to back AI in healthcare?
I think, and I have to confirm this, I believe healthcare is one of the largest producers of data because of some of the challenges that have been in the ecosystem. So some of the lack of knowledge around what do we do around regulatory in one space versus another. A lot of this data, or a lot of the models that are being created, weren't actually being used, but the use cases are becoming more and more viable. So we are seeing, for example, the use of AI in imaging is something that is really helpful, or clinical insights that you can get from data from an ICU.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to, instead of a physician being able to go do the rounds and talk to everybody, they also can get a lot of this more digitized format and utilizing AI and that data being pulled together. The training of the models, the way that we are actually approaching, I'm trying to say things without saying things because a lot of what we do is also proprietary.
Yes.
So,
I kind of got the gist of that, but I didn't
do I cross? That's why I also skirted around the whole robotics piece. And you let me, which I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
But when you look at the usage of data and AI, it's also becoming more accepted. People are becoming better at understanding how and where to use them better in healthcare. And also, healthcare as an ecosystem is becoming more acceptance of it.
Yeah.
there are still hospitals that use fax machines. That's a reality. So we're throwing 20th century technology at 21st century problems. But you also have, talking to some of the hospitals, I was with one of our customers earlier today, talking to them, you can see how they're utilizing it. They were using, this is not something they do with us necessarily, but they were using 3D printing to be able to look at the image of it and do training of the surgery for the physicians. And this is a fantastic way. I mean, like, where's a fax machine and a 3D printer? When you think about their innovation and when they were invented, there's a big difference, number of years in between them. So the acceptance that we can use data and AI, and also on top of just what is used in a hospital or healthcare ecosystem, individuals, when you look at continuous monitoring, one may think of a massive machine, but your actual health, like your actual watch that's monitoring certain symptoms or certain physiological, and so like your temperature, your heart rate, your HRV, all of those things, individuals are able to become more and more aware of their own health. I can see
but
here
are
that
they really
sitting,
reliable?
Depends. It's funny. A friend of mine versed several of them to just compare them at a time. It's like, oh, that's what does it say about my
Because
HRV?
when you look at it from the hospital standards, especially or compared to the ones on your wrists all the time, are they really accurate or in terms?
So it all depends, because if you are using it, for example, if you're wearing a smart ring or a smart watch, what it does is you're doing it because you want to be mindful of, did I get enough sleep? Or when you're exercising, what is my heart rate? Now, if you were a heart patient, it's probably better to do that under the care of a physician and not necessarily try to self-cure.
Right.
But again, that's where I would go with it. I think it's depending on the use case. If it's for well-being, it's different than when it is for treatment. And when it comes to the applications of the latest technologies in a hospital setting, we're still looking at precision matters a lot. You're dealing with a cure. You're dealing with healing someone who is hurting. Whereas if I'm wearing a monitor, I'm trying to say to myself, oh gosh, this year I didn't get that much sleep, or this past week I had 3 nights that were all under 3 hours. That is really bad. And your app is yelling at you.
So coming back to your experience at Philips, so what have you, something that you can talk about, of course, have you been a part of any instrumental global research or any breakthroughs that you have had? And if you can share those experiences.
I'm going to tell you something about something very impactful we've done. And I find it to be, especially as a woman, personally, I care about it. So in the mother and child care space, we have been working with the Gates Foundation on a handheld ultrasound product that we have, which is called Lumify. And what it does, the work that we do with Gates Foundation, is in rural areas in Kenya, the use of this has been allowing us to work with the use of AI has been allowing us to train midwives to be able to help mothers throughout their pregnancy by identification of if there are early signs of anything that needs to be addressed. Because in some of these rural areas, you do not have
the rest is necessary.
Exactly. And so being able to train someone to utilize these handheld ultrasounds is a huge step in being able to provide access to care.
Actually, that's fantastic.
And this is where you see impact in something that is doable.
Because midwives are used, I mean, if you talk about the first or the first perimeter or towards the city, that's okay. But the further you go, people rely more and more because this is genius.
Another one, which I find to be very cool, is helium-free MR. So helium is one of the gases that that leaves and it doesn't get recycled. You noticed already, probably from one of the places that you read this. Did you have someone on the podcast about this?
No, but I know about it.
So it's important because every helium balloon that we fill, it's a bit of a guilt trip nowadays when they're standing upright. And helium is running out because we use it and then it leaves and you can't recycle it back. MRIs use a lot of helium. Philips has a Blue Seal technology, which basically uses a fraction of this. I think I was looking at how do I explain this to a 10-year-old the other day, and it was the size of 10 pandas less, so the weight of 10 pandas, less helium that you would use in the Blue Seal technology than before.
Okay.
And that is a fantastic thing for the environment.
Right.
And so this is where there is a lot less being used by this new technology that keeps it so close to the magnet. And that, as a result, allows you to not use as much helium.
Right.
So that's another impact. And this is like where you have sustainability and healthcare and environment
that have been taken care. Yeah, they're varying great. So of course, you have been, been a researcher and a scientist yourself, as you've said before. What if somebody wants to be what you are today? What is some advice that you would like to give for young minds who want to pursue the path you have taken?
I have been given a really good advice by someone around 12, 13 years ago, and I think I listened to it. I try to listen most of the time. I don't, but this one I listened to, where it said cross-functional, cross-geography is how you can grow. And I think that's one of the things that I followed, where it's by exposing yourself to the unknown. And it's hard. Change is hard. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's a cliche, but it's true. It's hard. But then you can become addicted to being uncomfortable. And it actually is something one craves. You want to be challenged. And that pushes the boundaries. I think those scars we gain along the way by the hardships that brings about is how one grows. And I think that's what allows me to take on new challenges. Because one of the things, and I know you mentioned hustle was one of the words that you used in our pre-discussion. One of the hardest things to do is to push back against the resistance that's out there around change. Not everybody takes that on. And I think that's been a theme in my career and also education. But the first person I had to convince was myself.
Yeah.
And that's the advice I would give is take on challenges. It's the gust of wind of change are all coming at us. It's not like you can stop them. And really, with what is happening nowadays, there are exaggerated exponentials happening every day. Like there's no black swan that would be, oh, this is like an far off event.
Yeah.
But it's like there's the black swans used to be these rare events. Now we have, even in this past week, 7 or 8 news from the big tech companies that it's all like a whiplash effect of, oh my goodness, so much is happening in robotics and AI. And I constantly read and keep up. But when you look at
hard,
it's fascinating. Now, here's the thing.
I love that you look at it that way.
I grew up on Jules Verne and Le Guin and Clarke and Asimov, and these are like sci-fi authors. So growing up on those, you look at this and you sometimes like, oh wow, I've read about this in a book. That ended well, or oh gosh, that may have been a disaster. So it's the world of reality is mixing with science fiction, or what was assumed as science fiction years ago. And that is what's really fascinating, because we're in this fast changing pace and there's like tidal waves coming, and you either learn to surf them or you're going to be blown away.
Yeah, absolutely. So you obviously are the global head of research, which involves a lot of leadership, right? Is there a particular style that you follow?
So another advice I was given years ago, over a couple of decades, over a decade and a half ago, is soften the people, hard on the facts. It just
explain that.
It's so simple and so hard to implement, especially when you're so engaged. Exactly. So, for example, if we are having a disagreement on a topic, it's not about the person. It's about the facts at the table. And I think establishing that so early builds trust. In addition to that, I try to bring on board individuals. I mean, setting up the right team matters. There are 3 characteristics I look at, and it's individuals that are bold, they're adaptable, and they have high integrity. Combine those 3 and you have the right team. And then obviously on top of it, it's learning, unlearning, relearning, being quick on your feet. It's not about expertise to me. It's about how fast can you learn new things? How fast, how agile is your mind? How adaptable are you? Because the world is changing and it's so hard to predict everything to be prepared for it, but you should be able to be adaptable in time. Also, boldness matters, not being afraid of failure. I talked about this. Failing fast is a part of what we do.
I have to cut you in here because we were speaking with Hamad Al-Hajri. He's the founder of Snunu, right? It's a very big e-commerce and delivery platform. It's a super app in Qatar.
Amazing.
And he said exactly the same thing. And we actually, my team and I, we loved everything that he spoke about. So I'm beginning to believe it's a concurrent theme with great leaders to find the right passionate team. So it's all about passion.
And you know what's the trick? When you get a few of them, the rest of them will come. Only the first few are hard.
Right.
But good people are always watching to join other star teams. And so only the first few are hard. Okay. And then you just have to watch for not messing the culture up, because there is a concept of you could get competent individuals who are not necessarily the best team players.
Right. Okay, so I'm glad you brought out the fact that, about the word hustle. Since there's one more question before I move to the second part that I want to ask you. The reason why I named it hustle is because a lot of us face hardships in our life. A lot of us, like you said, for people, sometimes they choose to walk the dangerous path or they choose to walk the uncomfortable path, but then they have moments of doubt when they face challenges or obstacles or anything blocking their path. What is that self-talk that you tell yourself in that moment?
So it becomes easier over time.
Yeah.
And I think the reason it becomes easier, and I don't know what my very first self-talk was because I have forgotten it by now, but the scars that you have, they tingle. Every time you see it again, you're like, but then you're like, well, I survived. I read in a book, which was about how to deal with loss, a sentence that was very profound. And that's what I tell myself. When you're looking at a challenge or something that is like a massive mountain ahead of you, a big hurdle, it's not the person that you are that ends up on the other side. It's who you become through the process. And so the sentence was, the person you become will catch you on the other end. So you don't have to worry about it.
Oh,
it was very sweet. And I read this and it was about, again, going through pain. And that's why sometimes they say, go through the pain, go through the challenge, because that allows you to become that other person that ends up catching you. There are times I look back and I'm like, I was so innocent before that experience.
Yeah, but that's made who you are today. Thank you. That's my personal takeaway from this interview. It's beautiful. All right. So coming to the second part of our interview, which is about style, we'll quickly touch upon it. And I would love to know, are you somebody who loves to spend time deciding what to wear and you believe, fashion or the way you dress is an expression of power? Or are you just somebody who puts things together because you don't want to waste time or energy or effort on it?
It's a combination of both, actually.
Okay.
So I do things fast, as you can see, probably. I'm trying not to speak fast. But I have to work on slowing down. So picking things is fast for me. But I like to combine different colors and have sharp images, sharp things, or little nice pieces that like sometimes catch an eye. I had this whole obsession with, I want to find a really nice brooch. And
I can see that.
At the market, I saw this bee, which is really pretty. I'm like, okay, this would be, and it
really
goes
well.
with, but it goes with so many outfits.
Yeah.
So there are little times, like there's a little bit of time that goes into that. But most of the time, it's all about do it quickly. As a mom and as a working mom, it's
difficult.
I'd rather spend time building a Lego set with my daughter.
So now we are moving towards my favorite part, which is the rapid fire round.
Okay.
It's just fun and easy.
And to get hydrated.
Yes. Trust me, it's not difficult.
All right.
Okay. So you can elaborate. Feel free to elaborate at any point if you require. You've mentioned this vaguely, but a book that changed your perspective.
Oh gosh, I do about 75 a year, and I love them all.
I'm trying to finish one a week.
That's still pretty good.
I'll try and do 5
52
pages before bed, but try, yes.
There are so many. There are some I go back to. One that I have on my shelf, and I actually do mostly Audible nowadays than hardcover. But one that I have, and I'm going to give you 3. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
All right. There's Marcus Aurelius's book and his reflections, which is very stoic and it's very useful to read. However, I don't necessarily listen to all of them. I should listen to more of them. There is a amazing sci-fi book, which I really enjoyed. And I went back to it 4 times and I made a whole lot of grown-ups read it. And it's called Ender's Game. And the movie came out, but the movie does not do the book justice. And then there's another 3-book series that I read and I loved, also science fiction.
Which one is Ender's Game? Okay.
The other one, it's a 3 books. It is called The 3-Body Problem.
I think I know about this book.
There is the movie as well. So
yes.
It's by Leo Saishin.
It just released, in fact. That's a fantastic film.
3 books.
Okay.
And it's actually the one trilogy that I've seen. It gets better as you read it. Okay. The last one is called Death's End, and it's fascinating. And it goes over centuries. So that's fantastic. I think it's a series, but they have changed it a lot. And again, the book is amazing. And then there is like a bunch of business books. I'll give you just one as an example, or maybe 2. there are two of my former professors at Tech Business School. One of the books is Super Bosses, which I appreciated quite a bit. And another one is a book called Wide Lens by Ron Adler. So that's Cynthia Finkelstein and Ron Adler. And their books are very useful.
Okay. A scientist or entrepreneur in research you admire?
I think Edward Jenner, as I mentioned, it shook me in a way that like, wow, this guy, I mean, there was no vaccine beforehand. He took so much risk by creating this thing. Can he actually save the life right away? And the smallpox vaccine was one of the first one. And I think that was fascinating. And then obviously Marie Curie. I do admire Katherine Johnson's story and the work she did for NASA. That is just brilliant. And a more like recent one is Jennifer Doudna.
Readers have so many names to go back and research on. I love that. The most unexpected challenge you faced?
Being a mother.
That came out of nowhere?
No, it's just, there's no manual. There's no preparation. And every parenting path is different. And that is so important. Nobody judges any mother for whatever they want to do. They should do whatever they need. They feel like it's right. They need to be given all the information, but the decision should be theirs. Motherhood is different. For every mom, it's different. And some people are a lot more with their children. Some people are less with their children because of life circumstances, because of jobs, because of careers. And every kid is different. So there is no way you can say, hey, I did it this way, so it will work for you too.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's one of those things that you have to be agile and adaptable on the spot. And the impact I think one has with so much influence you have on a young being, the responsibility on one's shoulders. I think if more people understood the heavy responsibility, it would be a very different parenting style all around.
Okay. One gadget or tech item you can't live without?
Oh, goodness. There's two.
Not your phone?
No, it's not my phone.
Okay.
I mean, one of them is attached to both of them are attached to my phone, but I need my phone to see them. But there's two items that I use constantly. One of them is a Shocks headset. It's waterproof and I can take it swimming, which is really helpful. And the other one was my Oura Ring.
I really enjoyed this conversation and I really wish we had more time because there's so much that I can dig into that head of yours and get out because I'm sure I love the fact that you love speaking and sharing knowledge about everything. And I can see a little girl in there somewhere.
Oh, totally. There's a 10-year-old inside.
Yes, who's excited about science and tech and okay. Anyway, thank you so much. This has been absolutely wonderful. I really enjoyed our conversation.
It was a pleasure.
And I wish you all the very best with everything that you're doing.
Thank you. And thank you for doing what you do.
And would you like to say something to our audience? Like anything about a word of advice?
I think it's a brave new world that is moving a lot faster. So just brace yourselves and try to get on surfboards, as we talked about earlier. Keep watching Hustle, Style, and Stories with Shanu Suresh.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.